Talk Funny. And welcome to They Talk Funny. We're going to be talking with Allyson June Smith momentarily. Allyson is getting ready to log in on her side in the UK. Allyson's originally from Canada. She is based in Manchester, UK. Thus, we're doing it at an earlier time. And you know what? I just realized the only time I've talked, the only two times that I've talked with UK performers, both times it got off to a little bit of a late start. So I guess it's what living in the British Empire kind of does. That's oh, hold it! I just heard a very specific noise coming to the screen momentarily. Is the very funny Allyson June Smith. Welcome, Allyson. How are
Hi,
you?
thanks. Good. Sorry, am I showing up?
We see you as a black square at this point in time.
Yeah, let me choose. Let me find the camera that you should be connected to. Sorry, guys. I don't know why it just, this is the problem. I know we're all supposed to be sound lighting technicians at this point, but
It's
Um,
the pandemic, the COVID camera work that has been happening. I just noted to the audience that you are the second UK comedian that I've been chatting with for They Talk
oh,
Funny, and both. Okay, the device is getting reconnected. But both have been late. The last was somebody that you've worked with, and I know you worked with because when I was in Germany, I saw the poster for you performing with Deliso Chapunda, Chapunda, sorry, back then. And so Deliso was maybe 15 episodes ago. I don't know why it's taken me this long to connect with you.
there you go.
Aha!
Well, I had to take off my HD. I have a better camera, but I just couldn't figure out through these StreamYard how to connect it to the better camera. So now I'm just on plain old Mac, everyone. Are you getting a feedback with me?
I am not getting any feedback with you.
No problem.
Do you have are you hearing feedback?
Yeah.
Do you possibly have this is by the way, welcome to the chat check portion of They Talk Funny.
Hi, everyone. This is the very exciting part of everything. Yeah.
It is if you have it open in maybe another window like the YouTube link, or that's a possibility why you might be getting some feedback.
No, I don't, but that's all right. No.
There is echo cancellation. If you go to the cam mic settings.
Yeah.
Echo cancellation. If that gets clicked, does that make a difference for you?
Well, let's see. It's clicked. Let's see. Well,
1, 2, 3.
I think it's gone.
All right.
It's still sort of there, but that's okay. We're good. We're good, everyone. I'm sorry for the delay and everything.
Oh, I'll never be upset or mad with you at all. You are such a delightful person, and so I'm just happy that I've got the chance to chat with you. The Dirty Four podcast is popping in to say, hey. Lynn Alex is saying that they love the big hair.
Thank you. Yeah. Are you kidding? I'm from Calgary, Alberta, so it's kind of like Dallas, Texas. So the bigger the hair, the closer to whatever entity you want to believe exists. Yeah. Thanks. I like big hair too. Yeah.
It was I think it was like 30 minutes ago you realized that there was going to be a camera involved.
I did. See, I should just realize that all podcast things are now video. I always forget that. So I'm like, oh yeah. And then I'm like, oh yeah, video. So
yeah, we've got
I will be caught off guard.
Yeah. The Calgary got a Yahoo from Lynn Alex and Corey Mack. Corey, wow.
Hey, Corey! Corey!
I definitely should get Corey Mack in on this show at some point in time. So Corey, shoot me a message because you are hilarious. Man,
Corey's
I'm
fantastic. She's my Alberta girl. You know, when Corey and I, well, Corey started comedy as she started a bit before me, and then I started. And honestly, we were in Alberta, we were in Calgary, and she was like the only other girl comic there for like first, I don't know, 4 years that I started. And then the next girl that I kind of, well, I say girl comic, but I mean girl comic that was working. She was the only professional. There was a few more in the amateur nights where I was, but none of them really stuck around. And then the only other one that that girl that stuck around for was Dana Alexander. I met her from Edmonton. So for many years, Corey was the only other, yeah. And I was just a big amateur for many years. So Corey was like the working. She was the one that taught me a
the
lot and
one
that
to
I learned.
aspire to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
Dana's
exactly.
also based in the UK,
Yes,
or she
Dana
was
is
for.
now.
She still is. Okay.
Yeah,
It's during COVID. I've sort of lost track of people and their posts.
yeah.
Uh, I think I sent you the photo, but 2015 I was in Germany, and just before going home, I saw an ad for a comedy show on Canada Day with you, Delisa Chapundo, and Tom Stade.
Downstairs, that was put on by Christian Schultz, and it would have been, oh, what's the name? I can't believe Quash Comedy Club, I believe it was. Yeah, it's great. It's such a great gig. If you're ever around that area, go
I
to the
yeah
comedy club.
yeah, definitely. Berlin is a place I want to get back to.
It's great.
Just the audiences and everything are amazing. But we're talking about you. This is They Talk Funny. You are the funny in the They Talk part. So your comedy style, you do a lot of storytelling, but how would you categorize your stand up?
Oh
Because
yeah, I
it's
guess.
been a
Yeah.
little while since I've seen you, so I'm not sure if things have changed while
I
you've been.
appreciate. Look at you. You're like, for what I remember, but I'll allow you to say what it is. See, this is why I was like, of course I will talk with you, Paul Ash, because you are so polite and lovely and would never offend anyone. And you're so funny. You are also the funny in this show, so don't take that away, please. Don't put all the pressure on us. You bear some of that as well. Yeah. You have to remind me of the question. I started talking too much. I do apologize. What you will remember, Paul, is that I still like to partake of a lot of goodies, so I don't really have a short-term memory anymore. I can keep talking. I don't know what about
I just asked, how would you define your
my
style?
comedy. Well,
Yeah.
obviously, it has great direction and focus. No, my comedy, I would say, yeah, obviously, I mean, I started storytelling, observational, let's say observational storytelling. And I guess now a little bit more, I don't know, my opinions since my life experiences, I'll say that. But I tend not to really have opinions on things that I haven't personally gone through or connect with. I'm not really political. I would never share. I don't do that sort of thing. So I guess personal storytelling, yeah. Yeah, observational, reflective. Can we throw that in there?
Reflective storytelling,
I reflect.
observational.
Yeah.
You reflect society around you. We've got a lot of people chiming in. Please remember to hit the like button as well. Lynn Alex is already in tears listening to you. Victoria Blair is,
Paul
wow. I
Ash is
gotta shout it.
awesome. Yes, Victoria, exactly. Expat
And
Comedy
Mike
Rock.
Matt.
Oh, thanks.
There we
Everyone
go.
in the UK is coming over. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. This is the thing, Victoria. When you have no short-term memory, life is exciting, right? Every day is a new adventure. Who are you? Who am I? Doesn't matter what's on the forefront. All right. I'm
That's
sorry,
why
Paul. Back
Dora
to
got the
question.
spin-off. Dora got the spin-off because the fact that she was the character with the short-term memory.
Yeah.
Oh well, we got this is jumping into it right away.
Oh my goodness.
Dirty Four wants to know, how do you write your jokes?
Oh, yeah. Doesn't everyone want to know how to write jokes, right? Isn't that the Dirty Four? I'll be honest with you, how I write jokes. I just if I find something funny in my life, then I'll usually start to go, okay, if something funny happened, what was it? Was it the situation? Was it the lead up to it? Is it the thought of what would happen if this always I kind of something funny will happen in my life and then I try to take it into all the different angles. I tend to think of it as going to school. So if I think of a funny thing, a funny idea, then I'll be like, okay, Now I'll take it to math class and look at it. Then I'll take it to social studies and look at it. So I try to take what I think is funny and break it down on a multitude of different ways: technical, observational, lists. I like a list. I love a list. Let's compare. Yeah. So something will just strike me but honestly, I'll be honest with you too. It's usually that I have an open mic show and I just haven't written anything. So I'm desperate and then I throw shit down and then I try to make that work. I didn't ask if I could swear. I throw stuff down and then I try to make it work.
Well, I really hope you can fucking swear. It's so good.
Thank God. Yeah. Yeah.
Dirty Four says nice, and I want to point out the fact that you actually were a teacher or studied to be a teacher, and so the fact that you take it to school, so you're looking at it from all the different classroom angles, is brilliant. There's now you mentioned like taking it to those different classrooms. Are you taking it on paper? Are you using pen and paper? Or are you
Oh,
recording?
yeah. Yeah. I think it's a great question. I love that question, Paul, because it is interesting. The actual, what do people do? For me, I am pen to paper. Everything starts pen to paper. I write, and not only do I cursive. I'm not a printer. I'm a cursive writer. I
That
love
explains the hair.
it. Has to come out that way. It just, to me, it's in me, and then I write it out. But I'm a big text journaler, diary writer. I've done a lot of personal reflection, which you'll also hear my jokes. So maybe a little self-help is in the jokes too. But yeah, definitely pen to paper. And then
And
and then if I want to type it out form, if I have to like send it somewhere, like for TV or whatever, then I would type it out long form. I also like to type it out long form too, because actually something I got taught a long time ago that I really loved was when you think of your joke idea, you write it out and then underline where you think the funny is. Because when I first started writing, I had a hard time establishing punchline setup. My brain doesn't work that way. So to me, I would just write it all down, underline where I thought the funny bits were. And if there was too much writing till I got to those underlined parts, I would just, how do I make it smaller? So I was always trying to get
micro,
quicker to what I thought was funny, but I had to see it and write it out.
which is brilliant. I mean, Judy Carter and Jim Madrinos both cover that in their books about the more laughs per minute, but also keeping your personality in there is
Yeah.
necessary. And you have such a great personality, especially on stage. I'm not saying not that's not a slight to you off stage.
It's fine.
Uh,
Yeah, no, I amp it up. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
No.
Dirty Force's writing is better than typing, in their opinion. I believe that's
Yeah.
Claudio, because Victoria is also a member of the Dirty Four. So
Yeah.
we've got two members of the Dirty Four checking in with us here. Now you mentioned going to the to doing open mics and sort of being on the panic and okay, I got to try this. Are you
Yeah.
recording the audio of those as well?
You know what? I should probably do a better job of that. I would say I'm at like a 60/40 rate when it comes to new material nights. 60% of the time I remember to like hit record, and 40 I forget. But sometimes too, if it's in an environment that I mean, it depends on the place. If it's a new material night, but I've never been there before, I kind of just give myself the grace of like, you just go and do it, and you're not gonna. Second time I go, I know it sounds silly, but I just like to feel a stage. And then the second time I would go to do an open mic, I would absolutely record because I'd be like, okay, you know this place now. So I kind of give myself a grace period. I'm sure I've lost jokes in those days that I have not recorded. But I've also done like so many years and recorded so many things that sometimes I don't have time to listen to it all as well as the problem. So I tend to
That
get
was
a
a
bit
follow-up
more.
question.
Yeah, a
That
bit
was
more
a fun
selective.
do you listen to it all? And Claudio is confirming that Dirty Four is him. There is all right, now, something you just said about the fact that, if it's the first time you're doing an open mic, you give yourself a grace period. Do you mean you go in and do your good stuff just to make
Oh,
a
no,
better
no, no.
impression? Or
I'll still do new material, but what I won't do is record it in case it's like, I don't know, it's just a thing I have. I allow myself you won't have to listen back to yourself if you're learning the environment the first time.
right.
I don't know. And I mean, I guess if that's not always, but I do kinda, yeah, I give myself just that. 'Cause I come from a time, right? I come from a time where there was very little social media, and there was like a freedom to just being in a spot and saying some jokes and then being able to walk away from it. And So I still like to think that that exists sometimes, and at open mics, I like to even give myself that.
Yeah,
Just
not everyone has
leave
their cell phone out, etcetera. Yeah.
yeah, leave it there. Yeah, yeah,
Talking about on social media, you are at Allyson June Smith, all one word on Instagram.
yep.
You are Allyson J. Smith, though, on Twitter.
Yeah, I
Uh,
had to they wouldn't let me do the June. Yeah.
yeah. And you are AllisonJuneSmith.com for people who want to find out more about you. And there's no current live dates, but when they start happening again, I'm sure that's where people can find them. So we'll keep up the Instagram because I think that's well, you're a little bit more
Everyone's
active there.
Instagram's the cool one right now, isn't that what and until you're, like, into TikTok, but I'm not into that world yet.
Yeah.
Social media, I'm still trying to, like, really, integrate it into my daily habits and systems. I just am still a little off the grid, and I know it's not good. I know, what am I doing? You lose career when you're not on the grid. So I'm trying. So, yeah, Instagram is what I will be working hardest at, everyone. And Twitter's been a lot easier to just throw things out. I've found that.
I
Um, yeah.
during this past year, it's sort of like some of my joke writing has just been on Twitter. So, I got the idea instead of I type it out on my phone rather than writing it down in my notebook, and I'll throw it on Twitter uh,
Yeah.
as a habit. Mike Gamash is saying, I've only recently started writing non-manually, as in cursive. I find I most easily remember my bits if I write it out manually because it stems back to writing lines in detention.
Ah,
Um,
that's so funny. I love that. And it is true because as a former drama teacher, which was what I was, I used to always say when you're trying to learn lines, the best thing to do is to handwrite them out once or twice. For some reason, there's something through the process of writing it, it just sticks in your brain. Yeah.
have you done any acting while you've been in the UK or?
Let's see. I've done oh, well, okay, like, yeah, I've done a little bit in background stuff, but the thing that I did that I really loved was I did my first pantomime.
Oh,
Now,
I thought you were
I
gonna
don't know
say panel show, and then
no, no, no,
it
no,
took a
no,
weird turn.
I did warm up for panel shows, which is fun, but pantomime, which is I mean, I don't know when my panto is that you guys don't do pantos, right? In everywhere in Canada, we don't really do it. It's basically like to choose certain fairy tales like Cinderella or Sleeping Beauty or, Snow White, and it's like this big theatrical production, but there are certain aspects to it, like there's always men dressed up as women and, the pretty girl and the prince, and it's very interactive, and it's always like the monster's behind the main character, and, the kids will be like, "It's behind you," and the act it's for kids, but there's also a lot of, like, kinda dirty a little something for the dads, as they would say out here, a little something for the dads. And I got to be the fairy godmother in Cinderella, and it was phenomenal. Because I got musical theater background so
Mm.
that was really fun. So that's probably the longest running acting thing that I've done in the UK, because that was, like, a month and a half or something like that, but yeah.
Lynn Alex is saying she only knows panto from Drag Race.
From Drag
Uh,
Race, yeah, that's great. Look at all that Drag Race is teaching us, and that's why it's amazing. I can't believe the UK is almost I think we're about to watch is it the season finale tonight? Anyway, if don't let's not talk about it, I don't wanna ruin it. It's been a great season.
yeah, now is it 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. where you are right now? Because I think our timing got messed up a little bit with the time
With the
change here.
time change, yeah. And I didn't even think of that, I'm so sorry. It is actually 6:20, well,
Six
6:19 where I am right now. Yeah,
6:19. Very very precise on the
6:19.
time. Now besides Corey Mack, who were your influences when you were starting out? Just which were your comedy idols that you enjoyed?
I didn't really have any because I had never anticipated in being a comedian. So, I mean, the only comics I'd really seen were like, I guess, Robin Williams, who else? So Robin Williams, obviously Eddie Murphy. I watched all the Raws and Delirious. Like I always wanted to be an actress. That's why I got into the whole live entertainment. But after graduating from university, I realized it's really hard to just audition and get cast in things. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll try stand up comedy because I thought, okay, because I thought with stand up, all you have to do is be funny. It doesn't matter on how you look, which is a lot of acting is your look. And I
Mm.
just thought comedy is just about being funny. So if I can just learn how to be funny, then and I very quickly saw a path to an actual like job that paid money. Now, maybe not great money, but as an actor, you have no control over making money unless somebody wants you.
Yeah.
So with comedy, at least I felt like, oh, I see. You do good here, and then you do good here, and then you do look good for longer, and then eventually you get paid. So I did the Joan Rivers. When I saw Joan Rivers documentary, I was like, oh my God, I did exactly that. I wanted to be an actress. I didn't think I had the looks for it. So while I was chasing acting, I decided to be a comedian, and then that took over everything.
Which is weird because I'm trying to be a stand-up comic, and now I'm make my living through acting.
Oh,
Uh,
so jealous of you. Ugh.
it's a fat ginger Gene Hackman look that seems to be very popular. Do you know how many like 1970s era cop shows are being filmed in Montreal? Like all the
You're
true crime
hilarious.
stuff.
Your face okay, anyway, we won't get into it. I won't go into personal compliments, but I think you look great. I think your face is very svelte right now, Paul. Let's move on. Go on. All right.
Thank you, because
You're
I'm
welcome.
hiding my jawline here,
The whole
but
time, all conversations.
yeah, all conversations, just so you don't get to see the extra chin. Lynn, Alex is, you know what, Lynn, thank you very much for cracking up. So the transition, how did it feel like when you noticed that the stand-up comedy was kind of taking off? Like, did you think, okay, now I'm going to be able to transition into acting, or did you just went, oh, this is a whole new beast, and I really enjoy learning the process?
Well, it was a whole new beast, and I really enjoyed learning the process, and I kind of felt like I was where I was supposed to be. Comedy was stand-up. I mean, it was I think it's for me, it's been more than just learning the skill of comedy. I think stand-up comedy has given me back something as a person, but that's just me on my own little life journey. So stand-up has taught me a lot about confidence and who I am and being a bit more sure and in all of that. Um, but I think comedy too just becomes so in like it becomes your whole world, or at least it did. For me when I was 22 and I found it, and it was my world, it was my friends, and then I just wanted to get good at comedy because I felt like I had control over that. So I think I just comedy became everything. I mean, I was teaching but I wasn't really auditioning. That's the thing. I never really I did have an agent actually. Look at it. I was like, I never really had actually I had a professional agent who was very good, and I love you very much, Roxanne. Please keep me on when I come back to Calgary. But there just wasn't that much. Honestly,
Mm,
as a girl, look, in Calgary, there's a lot of like, you want to be a background actor. If you're a guy who can sit on a horse, odds are you're going to get work. For girls, I mean, there is some, but it just wasn't, maybe if I was in Vancouver, Toronto, there would have been more. I could have gotten more into it. But where I was, Calgary has a scene, but it's a small scene. And unless you really dig your heels in,
yeah.
you know. So comedy was a whole world that was functioning and happening, and I could meet comics that I saw on TV. You'd see someone on TV and then they'd be there in the club. Like that was a mind-blowing thing for me because I was like, "Oh, this can be a reality." Like, I can also make $150 on a television appearance. No, I'm kidding.
If anyone has any questions, they can drop them in. Mike Gamash is asking, how are British audiences in comparison with Canadian ones?
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
great question. I think that all audiences have changed significantly over the past, like, let's say 5 years. I think audiences across the world are very different. I feel like we are living in times where the audience wants different voices. People want to hear new things more so than I have ever thought before. But I would say the difference between Canadian and British audiences. Okay, this is funny. Little things like when I first came over here in Canada, guys would always talk about being single. Over here, guys were always talking about their girlfriends, which I just thought was interesting. I was like, oh, look at that. Everyone shacks up here because no one can afford to live on their own. So everyone's talking about their girlfriends. I feel like it's a bit more audiences here. They appreciate that you're from someone else, but they also really appreciate when you know that you know about where you're at. I don't wanna say there's parochialism, but when I first moved here, because 'cause I'm particularly in the North as well, I'm in Manchester, so it's
Manchester.
yeah, and there is, like, a bit of a north-south, I don't wanna say divide, that's negative, but differences, so that was interesting for me because I was also I guess I was kind of in Alberta of England because I would do gigs that were in smaller areas. I wasn't just in central London. I was there sometimes, but for me, I was kind of traveling all around the outskirts of the country and, Wales and Scotland and then back and forth to Canada. So for me, it was like I they're the same, but they just also wanna know that you've taken the time to, like, know where you are. I'll say that. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas
That's
Canadians, I feel we're a bit more like, "You're from somewhere else. Tell us your views." It's much more
the fish out of
Canadians were
water.
built on. Yeah, we're like, "Our country exists because people came from all over the place, so what's your story?" It's yeah, yeah,
I've always seen that, but I've always well, okay, bad example, but Derek Edwards used to always promote the fact that he would read the newspaper as soon as he got into, or the local, be it at the diner where they have all the local stories or whatever, and he would incorporate that in his first 3 minutes of stand up, to show that he knows the place. So that was a kind of a Canadian thing, and always that fish out of water that gives you that little extra charm, a little extra breathing room. But the audience is like in Germany, like I just spent a week in Germany, and I did a number of shows, but showing that I was paying attention to the city, like that immediately sort of endeared me with the crowds.
yeah. Because also, by you talking about subject matter that is familiar to them, it gives them an idea of who you are. 'Cause what's your viewpoint on our thing here? Oh, that's your viewpoint. Okay, I see who you are. I think on an international level, that kinda helps people to connect with you in a way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even touring within Canada like being in
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
it works as well. Now, you mentioned about, hey, I'm meeting these people who are on TV, but you got a comedy now as well. Did you get that as a prelude or after you had moved to Toronto? Because you were in Calgary for a long time, and then you moved to Toronto.
Yeah, no, I got the Comedy Now before I moved to Toronto. Yeah, I got the Comedy Now, yeah, still when I was in Calgary. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. So, I think a lot of us got Comedy Nows. I don't wanna say early on, because at the time, I felt like I was always submitting tapes and really working for it, but I was still such a baby. But yeah, I was still in Calgary at that time, which I think kinda benefited me because, Comedy Now needed to take people from all over the place, so I was the
yeah,
only girl at that time in Calgary, so, you take the opportunities you're given no matter how you're given. So yeah, so I did that before, and I think doing comedy in Toronto for that, because I did some spots there, of course, before then. Once I got the Comedy Now, I went out and did spots in the Toronto clubs, and, um, it was really great too because going to a different place and performing your comedy somewhere new, it also affirms you because
yes,
when all you are is at your home where you started and people have an opinion of you as a comedian and even though you grow and change, people still kind of have that view. And I guess I'm talking peers or the people that are booking, even audiences, I guess they kind of, but when you go to a new place, nobody knows you and there's no prejudgment and you start and you've already had years experience somewhere else and then you start somewhere new and then people are like, oh my God, wow, it
where did they
gives
come
you a
from?
little.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it makes you feel like, "Oh my god, okay, I am growing." Because I think sometimes just being in the same place sometimes and not
yeah,
always, but, like, even just touring, I used to say to comics early on, like, "Tour."
get
Because I
on the
would see
road.
comics that yeah, that would be like, "Oh, it's not really." They wouldn't get because again, Alberta, people would be like, "Well, Alberta, I don't know, those rednecks are gonna get my jokes," and I'm like, first off, they're not rednecks. Second of all, it's your job to make people get your jokes. So whether or not they're your people, you should probably get out there and figure out how you're gonna entertain people, and then figure out what your individual market will be. But until then, entertain people, and especially in Canada. I mean, that's what we do. We go to places, we entertain a variety of different types of people, you know, unless you have your own tour, but very few people have that, let's be honest, in
Yeah,
Canada.
especially in Canada where it's usually a brand is being promoted rather than the individual comedians' names.
Absolutely. It's so funny. I was just talking to another comic about this the other day, but I think that's why people are like Canadian comics. You guys come over and you're so good. And I was like, well, we have no celebrity system, and we thought nobody was ever going to actually let us do this. So the fact that this is an industry where you're looking at us like we're professionals, we're blown away. Like there's just it's such a different. Not that Canada's bad. I love Canada, and Canada's a great place to learn how to be a comedian, but let's be honest, Canadians, we know the celebrity system, we've got a very tiny one because we're
The
swallowed up by the states,
the Canadian Association of Stand-up Comics is attempting to rectify that. First thing they're trying to get is to have
Us
comedy,
recognized
yeah, as an art
as
form.
an art form.
Like that, because that's a question that politicians have right now. Maybe probably because we make fun of so many politicians. But Mike Mash is saying, how welcoming is the British comedy scene?
I get it, Mike. You wanna come over to the UK, so you're trying to pump me. I get you. No, uh, well, if we're talking in when things are in better situations, I mean, I guess, are you thinking like audiences, bookers, comedians? I would say, like well, I don't wanna say like everywhere, but, people in the UK would have said in the last few years that there was a little bit less work than there has been before. I don't know if I necessarily think that. I think there's a shifting occurring, and I think comics that maybe weren't getting work at some points are now getting work. So I've never thought there was less work. I've just thought there's a shifting of things occurring. Even in Canada, it's things are shifting. So I think right now people are still a little bit wanting to hold on to what they got. So I don't think there's quite as much work as there used to be, but by no means do I want to say that the scene isn't welcoming. Audiences are welcoming. Because again, like I said, audiences, I think all over the world are wanting to hear different voices and different people more than they ever wanted to before. I mean, what do you think, Paul? Do you think comedy audiences have changed over the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years?
Uh, I think they've been more selective and more vocal. I think there have been more audiences because there are select groups that are saying, "Well, I don't want that style of comedy. I want something different." And so people who were normally saying, "Oh, I don't like comedy. I can't go to that because of it's offensive," are now finding venues and performers that they are willing, like that they get and feels gets
Yeah,
them. So
yeah,
if you're open to everything, then there's so many other places you can be going to. And if you are a good comedy's good comedy, no matter what.
yeah, yeah.
A good comic can work any kind of room. Like whatever Seinfeld said about universities, you can still play universities. Like there's still comedy happening at universities. He can't because he's not adapting. That's I did I just dissed Seinfeld on the internet.
No, you just said that maybe I'm imagining Seinfeld doesn't wanna go there and try to talk to them about what might be, I don't know, relevant in their
Relevant to
lives at
yeah,
that time.
yeah.
Like it but that being said, I bet you there's a ton of students that would be like, "I would love to see Jerry Seinfeld talk about what Jerry Seinfeld taught," so,
Yeah.
yeah, I believe you
There
can
is.
play
There's
anywhere.
definitely still a market for him, for sure.
Yeah.
Now I have heard from other comics that the London scene is changing because the London downtown core is changing. Like there was might have been 2-3 years ago. There was uh, one of the older theaters that was all a comedy club. Ended up the building was being torn down to be condoized, and that is happening. Is that possibly with some of the shift that's happening in the UK with about work or
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, I don't really I mean, I wanna stay positive. Well, I don't know, because in Canada, I felt like people went to stand-up comedy maybe a few times in their life. Some people have never been to comedy in their life, but in the UK, comedy is more of a stand-up comedy is more of an institution. Like, it's
yeah,
been a part of their lives. Like, everyone's been down and seen, the show down at the pub, or they've been to some sort of comedy. It just seems to have a bit more legs to stand on. So, I feel it's just that I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it might be the buildings, but I mean, people can pop up comedy. Because here's the other thing too, comedy clubs here, when you say comedy club, they're
mm,
not buildings, all right? No, very few people have a comedy club. The Comedy Store has a club in London and in Manchester. The Glee clubs have clubs in, like, 5 cities. Most times when you say a comedy club, it's a night in a pub.
okay,
So, this comedy club, so it took me a long time to realize that. It would be like, "Oh, at the comedy night at the comedy club in the Hare and Firkin," and you'd be like, "Oh, okay, so it's just." So I feel like even if the buildings weren't there, they could still pop up in other places. So
Right. Okay.
I think, you know what I think it is in the UK? Here's my opinion. There used to be less stand up on TV, so people would go to see live comedy. Ever since there's been more and more comedians on TV consistently, people will watch them on TV and then they'll go see the comics that they know on tour. There is less people just going to take a chance on a random four comedians down at a pub. That's what I think has happened a little bit in this country.
Okay. The jongleurs still exist, or
Oh, it's very controversial. It is just reopened, different owners and everything, but they went down owing a lot of people money and there was a lot of problems. So we'll see what goes down. But so at this point, they're about to maybe try and do some shows when and if things open up here. But they weren't and they haven't been in existence for a while now because
okay.
they weren't paying their comics.
Ooh, ooh,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah,
No,
sorry, junglers, don't sue me, but you know very well that that is what happened. I'm sure it'll be a different game now.
different owners, new start.
Yeah, let
Should have
you
took a
know,
new name, but I guess they're trying to bank on the audience recognition of the old name.
which is interesting because junglers is very much like Yuck Yucks. So I work for Yucks in Canada. Um, Which, for many years, I mean, that's what people thought comedy was. Like, in some small towns in Saskatchewan, you go and they'd be like, "Oh, the Yuck Yucks, not the comedy club, the Yuck Yucks."
The Yuck
So,
Yucks, yeah,
Junglers was really the main chain that was the same thing. People, identified the chain before they identified
the
a stand-up
comedians.
yeah, exactly. So, it's interesting. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Hmm. Mike Gamache is chiming in with another question. I've always thought that British audiences were more tolerant and appreciative to slightly or completely blue material, and I love clever ways of doing so without being outright crass. Your thoughts?
Agreed. If you can be, very clever with innuendo, even if you go a little blue, as long as you're yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you a little bit. What they will take over here is definitely interesting, you know, because I mean, language, again, depending on the show, sometimes they don't want you to swear or whatever, but language here is people are using words here that I was specifically told on gig sheets in Canada. Don't say this word. It also starts with the letter C. Don't say this word. Not
Oh,
that I
cucumber.
was saying that
Yeah.
all that much, but Um, so yeah, I think they're a bit more tolerant. However, I don't want to be like, yeah, they're totally open. You could go anywhere. Go to Cambridge and get into your best, I don't know, pedophile humor. They'll love it. Like, no, people are still people, and you know, that's my thing sometimes when people say blue or crass. I'm like, "Okay, but what are do you mean you swear a
What do you
lot, or are you
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about" yeah, like, what do you mean by blue or crass? But yeah, I do think, they're different. They're I don't wanna say they're more open because when I come home, I feel t when I say home, I mean to Canada, I feel so free because then I'm on home soil again, and they're not see, when I'm here, I feel like they're all away games, but when I go back home, I get to play some home games, which is nice. Yeah.
The now, forgive me if I'm wrong. In the
Mhm.
history of stand-up comedy, like stand-up comedy only really started kind of to get more serious in the UK in say the 90s. Like whereas in Canada there was yucks in the 70s. So it sort of had a later start, and that's sort of why there was that big boom for Canadian comics going over there, being polished and finding themselves in an appreciated place.
Yeah.
Now, do you? And then
The
you're
the
talking about
actual
how there was
baby, though, of stand-up comedy started here way before anywhere
well that would
because
be more theater, was it not? Like more
no,
mon
working
no?
men's clubs is what it would be. It was working men's clubs, so it was shady little like, where men would go to drink after work, and it was the cheapest entertainment was to hire a guy to tell jokes. So a man would stand up in front of a group of other guys drinking beer and telling jokes. That was the start of stand-up comedy. That's how it was stand-up commentary. So they'd be joking about society, joking about what's going on, and that's what started here. And that's why also people affiliate like, by nature, kinda there was a bit of a masculine tone to comedy clubs for
Comedy.
many years. Yeah, because it came from
It was
working men's clubs.
men's clubs.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Alright,
But I
that's
agree with you, the boom for, like, the industry of comedy, yeah, we had Canada went through the boom in the '80s when people were, like, getting swimming pools with club logos on the bottom of it. It was quite a time to be alive. The cocaine was amazing from what I hear. Whereas they had their boom here, yeah, I would say in the 90s for like that
Yeah,
sort of, going to
it's
comedy clubs per se. Yeah.
still one of the greatest comedy albums. I'd have to say is like Ben Elton's Motormouth,
Oh,
because
yeah.
it was recorded in a live pub and has no edits. The only edit in it is because it was recorded for vinyl, that you had to flip the disc. Um, and at one point, some football fans come in singing "Ole Ole," and he engages with them and gets them to shut up, and it's still on the album.
Awesome. Yeah.
It's compared to people who now go and they'll record an entire weekend so they can get that, one album or one special out of. It was a different thing. So
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, I want. How can I? I'm trying to think of uh, what. How has the past year affected you and your career? Have you been doing the Zoomies? Have you been doing how has the lockdown been affecting the UK, especially with UK being getting one of the first variants?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. We're not in a great state. We got a lot more people. Things spread quickly here. We're
yeah,
very close together. So, yeah.
packed in.
Um, Well, I mean, it's interesting too because this country would book work basically 6 months in advance, whereas, from what I remember in Canada, you would know kinda what's going on, like, maybe 3 months, like, some people might have been good at, like, but because I, worked for one specific company, a chain, they kinda gave me my work, so I would know a few months in advance, great, but here, it was like they're booked 6 months to a year in advance. So that's the other thing, Mike, if you're thinking of coming over to the UK, one thing that I can recommend to you, to go back to Mike, who is specifically listening, and I know he wants to come to the UK, you plan yourself a trip and you come out and you don't try and look for money on your first trip and you do a bunch of rooms and you just see what it's like. You don't come here looking for money on your first run, but I would say that going anywhere to do comedy. That's
Yeah,
just my opinion. If you want to, grow and see what a landscape is like.
make the connect.
Um, yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Oh God, I'm so sorry. What we were just talking about before I got sidetracked to Mike, the question you last asked me.
How has COVID affected the current climate and your
Well,
personal career?
I smoke a lot more marijuana, so I don't remember things. I can say that so freely in Canada. It feels so good. It's illegal now. Still have to hide it here, but anyway. So everything books up real
So
far in
the internet
advance.
doesn't go to the UK. Okay, good. We're good.
Yeah, don't worry, everyone. But 6 months to a year in advance. So within, I don't know, things started to happen, mid-March? And then by the end of March, I had a year of work taken away, like, all work. Within 2 weeks, I mean, just everything was gone. It got to the point, it was so funny, you'd get so many emails every day of people being like, "Well, because of what's going on, I'm like, "You know what? Just write me if you're planning on trying to go ahead, because I'm just assuming now that everything
Mm.
is an interest crash in 2 weeks to just have, yeah, but the only thing that gave me comfort was I was like, "Well, this is everywhere," like, I'm not gonna take this personally. Work is gone across the board, so all work was gone. So, I started to, I built this little sound studio because I thought, "Oh, I've always done a bit of voice work, so maybe I'll look into that." And then slowly but surely, Zoom shows started, so I immediately jumped on to Zoom shows. I know some comics were not into it, but I was like, "If there is a way for me to work from home, let's do this." And I actually found working in this medium kind of fun and kind of different, um, because it's close. Because it's close, you
Mm.
get to be
Yeah.
intimate with an audience and tell some jokes or say some things that maybe I wouldn't on a big stage, on a stage away from people. So I just jumped into Zoom gigs, 100%. And there were a few. There weren't as many as I hoped there would be, but there were some. But yeah, from the beginning, I was like, any Zoom that was going, I wanted on board. Yeah.
I have heard from, well, I mean, my own personal experiences. I like to have that connection, that give and take a little bit with the audience, and I can't reach that with a Zoom. I'm most of the
Yeah.
times I'm in the big window and I can't see anyone else. But that's why this show started. Is I wanted to still keep my toes, my fingers in comedy, and just
Yes.
have it sort of adjacent. And I have a number of different shows. So anyone out there, find me on Facebook. Actually, if you don't mind me doing this, I'm gonna just
Do it. Do
throw
it.
throw that. There's a link tree on the bottom, so you can actually support the various shows, or you can also make sure you subscribe to the right YouTube channel. They Talk Funny. We are talking about comedy, and that's the main thing. Now, with the vaccine rollout that's happening in the UK, uh, is there? Do you believe that comedy, is anyone started booking yet? Has anyone started saying, okay, we're gonna, everyone who wants to be vaccinated should be vaccinated within the next, is it 6 or 8 months or?
Yeah, I mean, things have slowed up here. I want to take one little step back before we can too. One more thing that happened during the pandemic,
Yes.
and then I'll get into vaccinating and what's going on right now, is I started, and I know everyone started a podcast, but I had no intention of ever doing it. And I joined up with two other gals, and we started a podcast. It's called Women Talking Bollocks. And it's fantastic. It's with Jen Brister and Maureen Younger. And we are three women talking bollocks. Because one thing I noticed with the podcast world, this is just an observation, was that when I started looking at podcasts, because they approached me, they're like, we have a producer, let's make a podcast. I was like, all right, I'll give it a go. And I started listening to a ton of podcasts because I'd listen to some, but only what I liked. So I was like, let me listen to a whole bunch of stuff. And this is what I noticed. A lot of podcasts were guys chatting stuff, just chatting. Girl podcasts, they had to have a specific content or point, or so guys could just talk and girls had to have subject matter that drew the audience in. And I was like, isn't that interesting? So when I said that to these girls, I was like, I'd kind of like to make a podcast where we get to like, shoot the shit. However, because we are organized people, we still have sections. So we do have subject, but it's a whole bunch of different stuff. And I would say you get a bunch of, like, I get to talk about horror movies and I have an advice column within it. And I love that because they're my passions. Another girl is very cultural. She talks about cultural stuff. Jen is a full-time mom and hilarious comedian. So she talks a bit. So we have like, it's the gamut of all of it. So you can talk about all sorts of stuff. So the podcast is what happened in my life and has probably been one of the greatest things to happen in my life because I never would have done it without this pandemic happening. And I don't think any of us would have really focused on this market as much as we have because of the pando. So
The
because of
panda.
this, the pando, I'm trying to give it a lighter name. I know it's not light, everyone. I'm not trying to make little of it, but the pando. So the pando has given us this, look at, we're talking. We've never talked before.
Yep. Yep.
But as far as things now, yes, people I think are a little like jumping the gun, but they're starting to book up. They're starting to look at, so they say we are supposed to be free. Is it May 17th, May 18th or something that they were going to start to lift restrictions. But they've just found out in the UK that we are running short on vaccinations. So that's going to set us behind 5-6 weeks now. So we were all supposed to be vaccinated by July, which would have helped things along. But now it's looking like there's going to be delays in that because of various reasons, Brexit, trade deals, blah, blah, blah. So I feel like it's going to be slowed down again. But people are starting to book for live. But what I also love is that they are also starting to make Zoom shows because I think everyone's realizing even when things start to function again, let's be honest, it's not going to hit the ground rolling like it was. Whereas this stuff will still exist. And there's so many people that even before the pando weren't leaving their house, there's a whole world out there that for them, this has been amazing. And for all of them, please come find me and watch all my Zoom shows. I love you very much.
There we go. Okay, Women Talking Bollocks. That can be found on what, Spotify,
Apple, Acast, wherever you get your podcasts. It's WTB is what we abbreviate it to. WTB.
Okay, WTB, Women Talking Bollocks.
Bollocks.
I just found out that I'm a female podcaster because the shows I do have themes.
Yay! You're a female podcaster. I like that.
Explains where I've been gaining the weight. No, sorry, that's a bad joke. Lynn Alex asked, do you do anything to hype yourself up for a stand-up performance? And is it different than how you would hype yourself up for a Zoom performance? I'm just going to throw that little twist in there.
Yeah, I think, for a live stand-up performance, I mean, I'd be too busy trying to figure out where the hell I was going and where traveling to, and then you'd be in the venue, and then you'd be in the headspace of just getting ready, whereas I think being at home, sometimes it's weird, you're like, "Alright, I got a set in 2 hours, okay," and you you make your dinner, and then you put on your nice top, and I always write out lists though. Again, let's go back to lists. I love a little journaling. So even I am whether it's an open mic, whether it's a corporate, whether it's just an online fun kind of clubby show, I always write out kind of what I want to talk about. I like to write out a list, but more just structure of where I'd like to go with things. So to me, that is what I've always done to prepare myself no matter what. And I handwrite it because again, I like it. I like the handwriting. Yeah. So that's
I,
usually what I do to prepare.
all right, I'm just gonna hijack us for a little second. There's a little button that says Cam Mic, right in the center at the bottom.
Yeah.
We're getting a little bit of breakup. If you go there and you'll see camera, and then it says Show Advanced.
Yeah.
If you could take it down one definition, I think you're probably on 720. If you just take it to standard definition, because we're
I'm
getting a
on
little bit of
480 right now,
you are
standard
okay.
definition.
Can you go on to low definition and then 360? Because
Do you
we
know
were getting
what?
some audio breakup. Yes.
Oh, I bet you I could put my other camera I won't do it now, but this is where I would go to get my HD camera. Thank you. You just taught me. So the next time I come on to this so low
Yeah.
definition, you said? Sorry, pal?
Low definition, because we there
Yep.
was a little bit of
Yeah, no
oh,
problem.
Corey Mack is saying the Women Talking Bollocks podcast is ridiculously awesome.
She's
Uh,
very wonderful.
Lynn Alex is saying loving a list.
Love a
Uh,
list. Yeah.
and Mike Gamash says Pando sounds like the COVID mascot, just a big spiky, a stuffed spiky ball. Uh,
The panda! Look out, the panda will come and get you. He's behind you. Yeah, that's,
so,
yeah.
well, what is it? Ring Around the Rosie. It was a kid's song from the Black Death.
Yeah.
Uh, so the idea that could be, we'll have the pando, the kids talking about
The
the
pa
pando in
the
a
great
100 years.
pando.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll just showing this t-shirt. This is the people that make this podcast slash live stream available. So StreamYard, they make it easy for anyone to do streaming. So if anyone out
I was
there
gonna
is
say, I
into
see a lot of people using StreamYard now, so StreamYard must obviously be the way
simple,
forward.
it is
Yeah.
simple. It's just not being technologically abled. You're able to get online and look semi-professional. I think this looks half decent.
I think so
But
too.
all right, now what is so you this is usually the question I'm wrapping up with, but I'm not going to quite wrap up yet.
Sure.
So you're seeing that the online comedy, the fact that like we always talk about the gatekeepers, and the gatekeepers sort of keeping us away from things,
Yeah.
and how the gatekeepers are sort of disappearing with the ability to be online and connecting with the audiences and building your brand without having to deal with like the big named organizations that sort of were holding everyone back allegedly. Um, Now, do you think that this is another knock on the gatekeepers, as in like this is almost looks like a broadcast studio?
100%. That's why, again, this world of, like, doing this, look, you could set up a show and you could run a live show somewhere and you might get 100 people in, you might get 200 people in, but you know what? You can get 2,000, 3,000 in this, and all of a
So
sudden
people,
the
please share
gate
this video.
yeah, please share this video. The gatekeepers now want you. Instead of you banging at the gatekeeper's door, they're like, "Please come to our door. We want your," which I don't know if it's good or bad anymore, because the other thing that I find with this is it's interesting because look, actual okay, I'm trying to phrase this properly. There could be a person with a very large following that maybe doesn't necessarily have content to back that up. So great for them. And the gatekeepers will be like, hey, you come here. You've already got, your following, your big numbers. We don't really know what it is you do, but we'll help you figure it out. You bring your people here, as opposed to, I don't know, developing a skill. But again, gatekeepers, I guess we could say they just chose who they wanted and then pumped them out to the world. So
Mm.
It does give us more power, I think.
There was an instance, what, 3-4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, at Just for Laughs, where they brought in a YouTube comedian
Yeah.
as part of a New Faces showcase, and it ended up being quite the scandal, because the person did not have the material to back it up to be on an international stage with international comics.
Who have
I
probably
think,
worked their whole career and hoped so much to one day get invited to Just for Laughs, and it's all they've ever wanted.
and
And this
there's this
guy's like,
one
"Yeah, I
guy,
guess I'll rock up." Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I got a million views on YouTube, or whatever it was, or 500,000 maybe.
But I can't blame people for wanting those, because they do have people, they do have numbers, and we're all in the world now where we're trying to, like, keep people interested. So I'm not gonna, I get it, I guess, but it is.
Uh, Claudio is saying that StreamYard is simple and better than Zoom, so we've thrown down the gauntlet at Zoom.
Whoa, whoa, yeah.
There is all right. I wasn't planning to talk about that. I have a theory that there's four main skills that a stand-up comic should have.
Okay.
Uh, so if you let me know what you think about this, and don't try to, don't worry about hurting my feelings. So I believe writing is a skill that a comedian should have. I think a stagecraft is a skill, and that's not necessarily. I do say persona is separate. So being able to craft and commit to a persona is a separate skill. So stagecraft is more or less knowing how to use a microphone, knowing when to
Yep.
move in close to get that extra
Yes,
little
yes,
buzz.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
All that, all those things, putting the mic stand behind you, and the stuff behind that. And the fourth skill, and this is the one that, like, pre-pandemic, that people would argue with me a lot about, was self-promotion. Some people thought
Mm,
if you had stagecraft and you had a solid persona, the gigs would come to you. And
sure.
as I always would tell people, no, you have to promote, and it's my weakest skill. I'm pretty damn sure. Not that the others are strong, but it's self promotion. It's self deprecation. That's the fifth skill, and I seem to have that one
No
pretty
problem.
high.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But promotion, there's a lot of people who poo poo on the people who have high self promotion. I think mainly, like, one of the things is being skilled with that. Because you get a following, or because you're kind of persistent, you end up getting more stage time, and you have the chance to improve those other three skills.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to, like, crap on people for that. Just make
No,
sure that you use
no.
that stage time to evolve. And
I wish
yeah,
I had the instinct. I wish I had that instinct of, like, self-promotion. That is something that has been very hard for me. Um, yeah, exactly. Huge media does not equate huge talent. I give you the Kardashians. Exactly. Huge asses does not equate. No. But although I love huge asses, let's not turn the tides back on that. Let's keep it curvy, everyone. Um, I just I know that I don't promote myself. I know I don't know the tool. Like, I know, because what'll happen with me is that I'll have some show and someone will be like, please promote it. So then I'll bang on about it on social media, and then I'll fuck off for a long time. And then now and again, put up a picture of my puppy, and then, like, try to bang on about shows. So I understand that I am doing this wrong. I've even sat down with people and tried to make a schedule on how to properly tweet and to Hootsuite, and you can pre-plan things, and there's a major craft. And so I myself am trying to get more friendly and be okay with, like, presenting my life, and here I am, and this is that, and putting it out there. But it's not one of my first instincts. And in fact, it's an instinct that when I started comedy, it wasn't. I mean, I guess that's why some guys learned that skill and went off and did things and promoted their own tours, and but that wasn't what was I was seeing around me at that time. So I didn't learn that skill, and I wish I had, and I'm jealous of those people. My only thing is just also be working on the craft as well as the promotion. Like, I think it's amazing that you have 3,000 13-year-old TikTok followers. All I'm saying is I hope you can do actual stand up, which I don't mean to be a snob, but, like, 20 some
it's a
years
craft.
I've yeah, like, so all I'm saying is do that. I'm trying to learn that aspect of things, so you guys just try to learn this aspect of things. So sometimes I get a little, yeah, a little nervous about that. But I agree. I like the 4, and I like that you divided up uh, stage persona from stage craft, because those are 2 different things. Stage craft is something that when I see a comic who's been going for 20 years and they still don't really have that, which of them don't, like, find light. You're not standing in the light. If you don't
Yeah.
see the light, you're not in the light. Don't eat the microphone. Some comics who just refuse to eat the microphone if they need to and hang it down. Some of the best compliments I ever got were at gigs with awful sound, and they'd be like, "God, you were amazing on that microphone." And I'm like, "Well, I got good mic technique. Say what you will about my jokes, but I got mic technique." Because I
They're
also
not
like
going to
to
laugh if they
use,
can't hear you. Yeah.
yeah, and sometimes being able to, like, emphasize certain things or, like, give it a distance, it adds to the joke. So I think that that is definitely an important thing, because persona too is hard. Persona to me is an organic thing that you keep doing and doing and doing, and eventually one day you're like, "There's my persona. There's my voice." Yeah.
Yeah, instead of finding yourself on stage. Uh, how far do you think your stage persona is from you?
I think my stage persona is probably just an amped up me, and sometimes a me without a filter a little bit. I would say
Mm,
that's about it. Not all the time, like, I'm not saying I'm saying crazy things, but I would say it's an amped up me, and I'm sure when I started, it was what I wanted people to think I was, as opposed to being what I am, and I think that takes people a long time to see too. Who are you trying to be as opposed to what the audience actually sees? My best friend one time saw me at an open mic, and I was doing jokes about marijuana, and it didn't get any laughs, and these are good pot jokes, everyone. Great quality pot jokes, and, she was like, "Yeah, but the thing is, you look like a teacher, you've got your glasses on, your hair's pulled back, you're wearing, like, a long skirt." She's like, "Nobody
you're not too bad.
believes you. Nobody believes you smoke pot because you," and I was like, "Oh my god." So it was like who I was and what I was saying, and it didn't match what people were and it didn't even dawn on me. So then I just had to, like, how do I work that to my advantage then? And then, I start to jokes about, I know you wouldn't think it, that, your math teacher could, smoke more blunts than you, or, and address it that way. And it changed everything. So self-awareness versus what, yeah, self-awareness is a big thing with comedians, I think. It takes a while to have.
Brilliant. Well said. There was a study done in Montreal years ago before I moved to the city, but I was told about it where they interviewed some comedians who were starting out, and then they followed them for like 2-3 years, and those who stuck with it, and they did like a personality exam of the onstage persona, and then interviewed the comedians to do a personality exam, and they found that there was a huge drift in one of those personalities, and it turned into be the offstage personality became closer to the onstage. So it's
Huh.
sort of become the fact that your onstage persona is more of an amped up you is because you've become comfortable being your persona on stage, that has allowed you as the offstage person to feel more comfortable in feeling the way you feel and thinking the thoughts you think.
100%. 100%. That's why comedy for me has been a bit of a, I don't wanna say a final, like, piece in the old, not final, but like a, it's helped me. It's helped me as a person. It's helped me to become, you know,
The
I don't
per
know. Yeah.
the a whole person.
A whole
Yeah.
person, if you will. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, yes, Allison, this has been an utter joy. We've been at this for over an hour already. Um, I'm willing to continue if you're willing to continue, or we could just chat a little backstage afterwards. What's your thoughts? We
Well, should
still have
we,
people viewing, so
if people are viewing, should we do a few more minutes? Chat for a couple more minutes and
yeah,
then, yeah.
we should. I want to tell you a story. I did it like before the lockdown. I was hosting an open mic at a hostel, so it's an international audience, and so of course I'm asking people where they're from, and there was a young man from Manchester, and
Hey.
I did some joke about Joy Division and and the factory records and all that,
Yeah, yeah.
and afterwards he came up to me. He said, "Oh man, it's so great that you know Manchester. I grew up 3 doors down from where Ian Curtis hung himself," uh, which was
You're
like,
like, Whoa! Yeah.
Whoa, okay. I'm glad that's a happy memory for you. It's a bit of a blue Monday. It's, but Uh, yeah, it was just like a weird kind of, it made me think of you immediately, so it was,
Aw, thanks. The hanging or no, yeah, yeah. Well, it's like when people talk about, if you mention Calgary, whenever someone's like, "Oh, the Hearts, wrestling," you're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's yeah."
yeah, not the Stampede, but yeah.
No, people don't internationally know the Stampede. Not at all. Not at
Oh,
all. When I came
that's
here, I'd
why
be
it's
like,
probably still
"I'm from."
happening.
Yeah, I'm like, "I'm from Calgary, Alberta," and people would be like, "Oh, yeah," and I'd be like, "The '88 Olympics, Eddie the Eagle, that year, that's us," and they were like, "Oh, the Jamaican bobsled team, yeah, that year. Oh, you ho." That's how they know Calgary.
There was a
Like,
John Candy film about that. Come on, it's,
yeah, yeah, exactly. But like you say the Stampede, they have no. So I was free of all Western affiliation in regards to like cowboy Albertan, whatever. Although when I moved away, I did buy cowboy boots. I did. Oh, my friend still's like, "Why did you buy? You didn't wear them when you lived." I was like, "I know, but they're really nice. They're black. They're very stylish here." Yeah, wear cowboy boots sometimes, guys.
it's, my girlfriend picked up, 2 pairs when she went down to Nashville,
Yeah,
so it's, yeah.
they're good looking boots. Yeah, if I could, I'd get them like with rhinestones on it and everything. But yeah.
Uh, you need to talk to my burlesque friends. That's a for sure.
Oh.
They're all about the DIY.
Yeah, they'll
With
bedazzle my boots.
yeah, gotta be careful how you say that. This just, don't wanna mess up a consonant up there. Now with the British audiences, do you find that the education system in the UK is a bit better?
I
And that the audiences might be a little bit more educated? Is that why?
I don't think okay, here's what I think. I think the British, the English use a lot more words. I think they just have a lot more
Well,
words
they did
in
name the
their.
language after themselves.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. They use a lot more words and they have a maybe just more use of. I don't wanna say, but I do notice, words here and children using, you wouldn't hear Canadian children using, so I feel like they might be
David
however,
Craven's making that,
that being
yeah.
said, sometimes with British people, I'm like, "Okay, get to the point. Alright, you know a lot of words. What are you asking me? This is the most convoluted way of you to ask me something, and it's because you want me to see that you know this, and this word." So sometimes I feel language could be a bit of a status symbol here. I might be wrong. Please don't attack me, those of you that are thwarted with intelligent language. I don't know. But I find that whereas in Canada, I don't know. It's my native language, so I can't really. Well,
Uh,
it's all of it's my native language, but from Canada specifically, I just find they're more wordy. They like using their words.
they
Yeah.
like using the words. There was, I don't know if you heard the news, it was, yesterday, and I believe it was in Parliament. I think, an MP from Wales wished a happy St. Patrick's Day in Welsh or, uh, however they pronounce what Welsh is called,
I can't
CYRMH.
say it. I can't make the. I can't do the sounds. I'm not even gonna try. Yeah.
Yeah, but they wished a happy Patty's Day, and then the Speaker of the House, censored them, like, came down on them for not speaking English, and I think he referred to it as a foreign language.
Oh.
Yeah,
And that's within the United Kingdom, everyone.
yeah.
There's some divides. There's some divides. For people who use a lot of language, sometimes there's not a lot of communication going on. That's all I'm saying.
I think that was very well put. That was very
Mhm,
well put.
mhm.
What are your personal hopes for the future?
Well, I hope that I look forward to when I can be in front of a live audience again. I hope that this time has made us all reflect on what it is we want out of life, and I hope that in the future, I will choose gigs that I want to do, not gigs that I feel I have to do. I hope to embrace this world more. I hope to continue with the podcast. I hope that Zoom gigs continue. And eventually, I mean, to go to Edinburgh and my own show, which I've put off and not done because I mean, here in the summer, people go to Edinburgh and they do the Edinburgh Festival and they do their one-person show and they maybe make or lose, which is probably more what's going to happen, £10,000. But I would really, that's what I was gearing up to do when it shut down this summer, was going to be my debut. So I went to Edinburgh Festival with some other buddies of mine, Tim Rabnett and Paul Meyerhog, and we did the Canadians of Comedy, but we just did like three people doing 20 minutes. Whereas Edinburgh is more of like a one-person show festival. So I've never done my one-person show, and I was leading up to it. So I always laugh if there was ever a sign from the universe that I wasn't meant to do Edinburgh. Let's throw a pandemic in there, hey? The pando.
Mike Amash saying, yeah, but the Brits can quite politely tell you to fuck off in words that sound like a compliment.
It's true.
At Edinburgh, the one-person show at Edinburgh, is it 40 minutes or an hour?
They say an hour, but like if it's 40, I would say... 40-ish, 48 minutes, I think, is usually what people are kind of, 48. I don't know why I know that exact number, but 48 minutes.
Is that what you were aiming for?
48 minutes.
Corey Mack says, I hope you strengthen and add your voice to all those places. You rock. I definitely agree with Corey on that. And something I probably should have set up earlier in the show. Comedy shows in the UK differ in format from here in Canada.
Very much.
Do you care to explain like the timings and how that works for those who are unaware?
Yeah. So in North America, I can't speak for the US, but I'm assuming it's kind of the same. But it's three people on a show. Yeah. MC, middle. Yeah, right? MC.
And occasionally somebody
spot.
doing 5 minutes as a guest.
Yeah. So guest spot would be like 5 minutes. It could go, I mean, depending on the club. Sometimes they put the guest spot on before what they would call the middle act or your feature act, or they put the guest spot on after the feature act. So it would be MC, who would probably do what, 15 minutes?
It's 10 to 12 as usual.
10 to 12, let's say. So 15 to 20, depending on the fucking MC. Anyway, because they go on sometimes. So, yeah, I won't say any names, but I know you all, and I'm never working with you again. No, I'm kidding. Until I run out of material, and then I want you on all my shows. So they do that, and then the middle feature act would come on and do 25, 30. Would you say?
The middle is usually 20, sometimes 25. Yeah.
And then there'd be the guest spot, 5 minutes at either end of the middle, and then the headliner, the main event, would do what, 45 an hour, depending on the club.
45 an hour. Yeah.
So that is, and the MC goes on in between everyone. There's no breaks because you get table service, so it just goes along. So in the UK, there is not table service. This may change after the Pando. The Pando may change things. We'll see, but there's no table service. So the way it would work is, show would start, MC would go on, MC does 10, tight 10, don't be a jerk, 10 minutes. Then the first act goes on, does 20 minutes. Then there is a break. So at which point everyone goes and gets drinks at the bar, goes out and have a smoke, and the first time I saw this, I was like, well, these people aren't going to come back. They're going to often, nope. And it perfectly, that's what happens. They go out, they have their 10, 15 break, they come back in, sit down, and then they're ready for the next comic. So then the MC comes on, does like 5. Then the next person does 20. Another 20. Then there is a break. People go smoke, bathroom, do the things, chat. Then come back. Then the MC goes on, maybe does 2, if you can, 2, 3, and brings on the final 20-minute act. And that's the end of the show. So literally your opener and your closer could be of the same level, because quite often your headline act is opening at another gig. So they're opening somewhere and then going to close at another place. So often your open and your close are, your middles quite often also are headline acts, or they're like the acts that are like just about to, maybe be a headline act. They're working the clubs, but they're just not grabbing the doubles yet necessarily. But that's basically the way it goes, is that there's a nice little break. I love it because I think there's a break. As a former teacher, I know brains can only really pay attention for 20-minute segments, and then they got to take a vacation trip. And I think it's nicer on the MC because the MC actually has an audience that is kind of paying attention as opposed to trying to just get them to. You're the break. You're the pee break as the MC. That's what you do. Like, all right, people, do your. And if you're not, then you're not being a very good MC because, come on, the people need a break. That's your job, that's what I think anyway. Are you kidding? I emceed as much as I did anything else. So I'm like, I know my place. I'll be fun. I'll have a good time with those that want to stick around. But if you got to pee, Ethel, you go pee. Now's your time. I will not attack you. And so it amazed me. I think it gives people a break. It gives them a second to like touch base with their friends, so they're not talking throughout the show. I love this guy. I think it's a nice, and 20-minute sets is always a dream come true, opposed to 45 to an hour. Let's be honest. Yeah.
Boom. So that is why the UK is the promised land for Canadian comics.
You guys got 18 sets already.
yeah, that's boom. That
18 20-minute sets easily. Yeah.
Allyson, it's been an absolute joy chatting with you. Thank you for sharing your time. Thank you for rushing. Sorry about the time change mix up. It's been a pleasure having you on They Talk Funny. Thank you to everybody out there in the audience. And again, AllysonJuneSmith.com. Check it out. Allyson June Smith on Instagram and Allyson J. Smith on Twitter. And it's also Women Talking Bollocks, which is actually, by the way, it's what WTB is 5 syllables. Women Talking Bollocks is 6 syllables. So shortening it to WTB is saving 1 syllable.
I know. It's more just we have to write less. The title could just be WTB.
Exactly. I ran into that by finding out a shortening Just for Laughs to JFL. Somebody said, that's the same amount of syllables, but it's just because I was typing it out.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Mike Mash says, great show, guys. Thank you. Thank you again, everyone. Please hit like if you want to see more of They Talk Funny content. Make sure you subscribe to the video, hit that little bell thing on YouTube, and you'll be able to find more, or you can just like the page for Paul Ash Comedy. Everything's in the link tree, so you can find it all, with the exception of Allyson June Smith. So remember AllysonJuneSmith.com, and you'll have all the information to contact Allyson there. Thank you very much. My name is Paul Ash. My guest has been the fantastic Allyson June Smith. They Talk Funny.